Welcome to the Plant Cunning Podcast,
where we explore a relationship to plants, other people, and the mysteries of nature.
Coming to you from the high Allegheny Plateau in central New York.
We are your hosts, AC Staubel
and Isaac Hill.
Today on the Plant Cunning Podcast, we are thrilled to have Priya Kale, astrologer and writer and teacher of the ways of astrology. So thank you so much for being here today, Priya. How are you?
Thank you, AC, and thank you, Isaac, for having me. I'm well, just allergies, but mostly well. It's good.
Great.
Good to be here. I'm excited.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. So our first question on the Plant Cunning Podcast is, how did you come to the planet path in your case, since you're an astrologer?
Thanks for asking, AC. Well, I started to tell you guys, and then we decided to record. My grandfather was, I'm Indian by birth. I'm American now, but I grew up in India. I moved to New York in 1999 when I was 22. So that was a while ago. But growing up in India, first of all, you're always surrounded by astrology. That's easy. But then my grandfather was a Jyotishi, which is a Vedic astrologer, my father's father. And although I never met him, I guess it was in my blood. So I can't remember a time when I wasn't drawn to astrology. Apparently, the story goes, my aunt tells me, I think I was 2 when there was an eclipse, and my father showed me what it was. And she said that the next 6 months, anyone who walked into the house, all you would do would be telling them about the eclipse. She was so fascinated. But, so I guess it was just always a part of me. And I remember always being drawn to wanting to read about the occult and magic and astrology. So my parents were both Sagittarian, tropically. So we always got taken to bookstores. That was our outing. Bookstores and travel, which was so Sagittarian and perfect.
Perfect.
But I'd always be lost in the astrology aisle and they'd know where to find me. They'd be like, there she is. So it started early. And then through my 20s, I got married when I was young, and then I got divorced when I was young in my 20s. So that was rough. And I think that's when that's when my study in astrology really intensified, because I was looking for answers. Nothing made sense. Things were just like, what the hell is going on?
Right.
And I really poured myself into that, and I found myself through that. And then when I was 29, I was working in advertising. I studied art and design, but when I was 29, an astrologer that I used to read at the time was looking for an apprentice. So I just figured, hey, you know what? I could learn something, and how bad could it be? I'll do this on the side. I'll at least enjoy it. And next thing you know, I was reading charts, and, here I am, how many, I don't know, 16, 17, 18 years later.
Wow.
So it just kind of happened, I think, at Saturn return. So I do have Saturn in the 10th house.
What does that indicate?
So the 10th house is your profession and your public image and your career and your life goals, in a sense. And Saturn at the age of 28 to 30 will make a complete return for everybody, right? So when we're about 28 to 30, it's a coming of age, that Saturn you're growing up, you're becoming an adult. So wherever you have Saturn natally in your chart, you will see themes of that house really, take on greater substance, and you taking on a bigger role there. So for me, career-wise, it just so happened that this was my life path, and I didn't even know it.
And was that a Western astrologer that you apprenticed with
Yes.
in your 20s?
Yes. So, I don't know if I answered your question, but yeah, Jyotish, although it was always around me, when I was younger back then, there was no internet. So it was not easy to find information, that a child would understand on Jyotish easily. Yeah. It was written for the texts are so deep, and it was written for old men, not for young children, So I just gravitated to Western astrology for that reason.
Sense. Right. A little more
accessible. Now I'm trying to get back and study and get back to Jyotish, but that's a whole other. It's a whole new world, right, Isaac?
Isaac knows.
Yeah.
What
Okay.
about Amma?
Well, we should talk about.
Yeah, let's talk about Amma. We can talk about Amma.
Yeah. So, So
Yeah.
who is Amma?
Who is Amma? Well, Amma is the divine mother. Amma literally means mother, right?
Mm.
Yeah.
But so we consider her to be an incarnation of the divine mother.
Mm.
She's, I mean, what can I say about her? You have to feel her presence, but you could say that about any like real guru. I don't know if you've been to a guru.
No.
Okay.
Well,
They say that the guru calls you, right?
Yeah.
We don't really have control over that. The guru calls you when you're ready, the guru calls you and you go. But I mean, gurus, whether Amma is considered, she's an incarnation, but then there are enlightened gurus as well. And in India, the guru shishya parampara, that disciple and guru relationship is so special. And so, I mean, there's nothing equal to it that I can find anywhere else in the world, right? Like I never in my whole life thought I would have a guru. Ever since I was a kid, like there's gurus all around you in India, so it's not an uncommon thing. So a guru basically, gu means darkness, ru means light, and guru is one who takes you from the darkness to the light. So from ignorance to consciousness. That's the role of a guru. And the guru is here only for your spiritual growth. And I mean, there's all kinds of gurus in the world, but Amma says, according to your karma, you get your guru. So that's also that relationship. They say the guru's been with you through lifetimes. She is, helping you guide your soul to that ultimate goal of moksha, enlightenment. So Amma Karunmayi is her name. Just a little bit about her if anyone wants to know. Of course, you can go find her on the internet. She gives talks and speaks a lot, and I'm blubbering, but she speaks at the UN. She's very involved with like women's empowerment and UN's issues, and she does a lot, like just charity work. When she was 16, she was born in Andhra Pradesh. Her birth was predicted by Ramana Maharishi, who was another very famous guru from Arunachala in India. And so Amma's mother was a disciple of Ramana Maharishi, and he predicted Amma's birth.
Wow.
So when Amma was born, they knew from the time she was born that she was a divine being. And, her parents were both very pious, loved her, all of that. But then when she was 16, they'd gone to Arunachala and she had a meeting with Shiva himself, her guru. I mean, however you want to imagine it happened, but she was seeing it in her subtle vision. But he basically told her she was supposed to go to college and she was supposed to go be a doctor, go to medical school. But he basically told her, go to the forest and meditate. Yeah. And so she came back and she told her dad, and I may be off with the details a little bit, but I'll, tell you the story. I think she told her dad didn't want her to go off in the forest because he's like, what are you going to do there? It's dangerous. No, all of that. So she said, fine. And she sat in her room and meditated for 2 years. And she didn't come out. She just would not come out. Like they would try to get her out, but she would not. And then her dad wanted to build an area where she could go and meditate. And then he passed away, but then she went into the forest anyway. And her mother she always says, she's like, my mother would keep following me into the forest with like tiffin and food, trying to feed me. And so I would have to keep climbing higher where she couldn't reach me. So she like disappeared off in the forest for like 10 years.
Wow.
And she lived in the forest for 10 years and she meditated there for 10 years. And at the end of it, they had to like cut the branches of the trees off of her. Like that's how deep she was in meditation and how long she was in meditation. That the trees were growing around her, like the shrubs were growing around her. And then, she came back out, but she says, children, I did that. Like, I don't need to do that. It's not for me. If I'm going to be your role model, then I have to be your role model. So I'm doing this for you, like to show you that you can do this too. And okay, not everybody needs to sit in the forest for 10 years, but your sadhana, your practice is important, and it's everything. And that's your ultimate goal. So this world, is that Maya. It's like be in the world, but not of it. So I was just I don't know if I'm going on too long, but I never thought I would have a guru. And then when I was, not because, I was very spiritual, I was very connected to God, but that's why I didn't. And that's kind of why I ended up being an astrologer, because when I was young, there would be astrologers who'd come over. My mother loved seeing astrologers. Even today, I'll call her in the morning and she's watching an astrologer on TV. And she'll be like, shh. So she still does that to me. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm here.
Hilarious.
But she would always have these astrologers, Indian Jyotishis, over when I was little. And they would, now I understand they were reading the dashas probably. So they'd be like, oh, at 30, you'll do this. At 45, you'll do this. And I'd be like, I don't know. That doesn't sound right to me. Like, I remember being like really little, 5 years old, and being like, what you're doing seems to make sense, but I don't think you are right. So it was like I trusted astrology, but not that person. So I was like, okay, I'll do it myself because I trust myself more. And so I studied astrology. And the same thing happened with a guru. Like people would call me to go see a guru, and I was like, because I felt like, and this will lead into my thing with Chiron as well, because Chiron is that inner guru for all of us. So that's why Chiron is related with the key in the Hierophant, which is also the guru. And it's about the natural laws of nature. We have this inbuilt guru within us. And then the guru appears also externally if we're lucky. But so I was always very connected. But then when I was 31, a couple of years after I started doing astrology full time, I had a very spontaneous, of course, looking back, I can think of how it happened, but there's nothing that I could have done to make it happen. Just pure grace, where in 2008, I had a very spontaneous Kundalini awakening. And it was just, it changed my life. Like for three weeks, I was in a very different state of consciousness. And I experienced that oneness, and once you've experienced that, there's no going back to unknowing what you've experienced. So then I knew I needed a guru, to be honest. Because at that point, you're like, okay, there's no one in this world, because everyone was me. So there was no one I could go to say, okay, what now? While that was happening. And so then after that, probably 7 years after that, I met Amma.
Yeah. So how did you meet her? She's pretty famous.
Yeah, she is. So she's been traveling the United States for 25 years, and she comes every year, like in April, and she travels till after Guru Purnima. So she'll travel from city to city. I was at the time very briefly living in Kingston, upstate. And one of my clients, who's a chiropractor in the city and has a home in Woodstock, we were having a session, and she's like, oh, Priya, you're in Kingston now. You should come see Amma. And I just said, okay, which was honestly, Isaac, it was so weird because my whole life, people have said, come see this guru, that guru. And I've always said no. So the fact that I said, okay, I was surprised. I was like, all right, maybe this is something, right?
Yeah.
And so I didn't even know what she looked like. And I said, sure, I'll come. After I hung up, I Googled her and I was like, okay, I'll go. This is December. Then in April, which is like almost 6, I was supposed to come in June. So in April, I had just one morning, I woke up and I had this thought and I was like, oh, Amma's coming, Priya. You better find out when. So I was like, okay, that's coming from, So I said, sure, I will. And I planned I'll get in touch with Peggy at some point. That afternoon, I was buying groceries and I don't know, maybe I was at a Walgreens or something. And I'm checking out at the counter and I was like at the cashier, just swiping my card, wasn't even looking up. And the cashier goes, are you going to see Amma?
What?
I know. That was, I just looked up and I burst out laughing. I was like, why'd you ask? I was like, what? Why'd you ask me that? And she was so taken aback because it was almost like she didn't know why she asked me.
Oh my God.
And it's like this woman, this blonde woman, curly, I've never seen her before. Random woman. So she's like, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to offend you. I said, no, I'm not offended. I am actually going to see Amma, but it's funny, that you asked. She's like, well, here's my number. Call me. I'll come pick you up because Amma was going to be in Woodstock, which is 30 minutes away from Kingston. This woman, I've never seen her before. The day before Amma was supposed to arrive, I called her. I was like, hey, will you still take me? And she said, yeah. This woman drove 30 minutes out of her way, picked me up, took me to Amma's, and then disappeared.
No way.
Wow.
She just disappeared. I don't know. So that's how I met Amma. So you are like, and I the moment I was there, I was like, I was home. I knew I was home. Like just started, everything just released.
Yeah.
But that's how magical it can get.
Yeah.
Amazing.
That is really amazing.
I love that story.
That's how it goes though in these types of things.
It's true. And she always says, she's like, children, you think you're coming to me. I'm calling you. And she'll laugh about it, because she's like, your children, I call you. So cute.
Beautiful.
So how is Chiron the inner guru? I've seen of Chiron as the healer, and I mean, and Chiron is a outer planet comet kind of situation.
And Chiron has I'm not going to get into all of it, but 77 was Chiron's discovery. And since discovery, it's defied even astronomical classification. So it was first considered to be a comet, then a centaur planet, then a minor planet. So it still shuffles between a dwarf planet. I think it shuffles between classifications even now.
Mm-hmm.
So it does have that very maverick shape-shifting quality, and maybe, okay, you complete your question and then I'll say what I was going to say.
Oh, like, who is Chiron?
Who is Chiron? So Chiron is a minor planet that was centaur planet that was discovered in 1977 by Charles Kowal. And I've been working with Chiron for the past, I was born in 77. So I think it has something, special to do with that. But I've been working with Chiron from the first chart I've ever read. And I have used this technique, which is something that I'm writing about in the book as well. But basically, you're looking at your Chiron transits, the natal Chiron. And like its symbol, the key, it literally, like, think of, first of all, when we're talking to a client, we've got 1 hour. If we're lucky, we're working with a client ongoing, but that doesn't always happen. If we're lucky, we have 1 hour with a client, we may never see the person again in our life. How are you in that 1 hour going to give them the best reading or the best information that they need? And for that, you need to have, ultimately a chart is a chart. I can't limit my client to my understanding of astrology. So I need to understand how this is manifesting for them, right? So checking Chiron's transits, I think, should be like a prerequisite for every astrologer. Like that 15-minute first intake, it's like a patient intake. You wouldn't prescribe something without knowing patient's history. Same thing with astrology. Before you say anything about the patient, you should at least know what is going on. And just because someone is 50 or someone is 30 does not mean they're at the same level of consciousness as someone who's 25, even sometimes, even though they've been through their Saturn return. And we all know that. Why is that? So these Chiron transits, it's like, and this is, I don't know if you'll find, you won't find it anywhere, because this is what I've experienced and what I'm trying to articulate, basically. They've got it has to do with the alignment of the chakras. That's why they call it the rainbow bridge, right? So it's the 7 chakras, 7 planetary energies that are within us. And at the time of these transits, there's alignment that's happening, right? Kundalini is more active. And so if the chakras are not balanced, and if there is karma, debris, whatever on the chakras, you'll feel that Chiron transit more like a chaotic, thing that then you've got wounds to heal. But if you've been doing meditation is one way, but if you're living in awareness with Chiron, the key is awareness, awareness is key. If you're living in awareness, then you're, dealing with your wounds as they happen and not suppressing in denial. Of course, sometimes trauma is too great and we have to suppress, but then it all comes up. So because Chiron's orbit is so irregular, it passes through some signs faster than others. So the in-between transits for people are not the same, right? So Chiron completes an orbit at 50, but the in-between transits can happen. Like the first Chiron transit can happen anywhere between the age of 5 to 6 to 22.
Wow. Yeah.
That's huge. So just think of, in terms of consciousness, that's such a, wide range.
Yeah.
And then, so the final return will happen at 50, but those markers are important. So this is something, again, I'm kind of working through and trying to wait. I think it has even something to do with the Granthis opening, right? So the Brahma Granthi opens with the first square, the Vishnu Granthi opens with the second, and the Rudra Granthi with the third. I don't think it's not that simple. So I'm still working through this stuff, and maybe I shouldn't be talking about it, but I think Chiron is a very powerful, overlooked, not yet very understood, because we don't have enough. Chiron hasn't completed a full year, full return since discovery, which is coming up in 2027. So this is part of my book. I don't know how much of this I should be talking about.
Yeah. Well, let's back up a little bit, because I think, especially with these newer planets, people like to they'll put a name on it, like Uranus is Uranus, and then they'll say it means certain things because of its name, or because people want it, what they want it to mean. But I think it really takes looking at charts and time of trained astrologers seeing how it actually manifests in people's lives. And so, from your perspective, working with Chiron and having this connection with Chiron for so long, what does Chiron symbolize? What does it represent in archetypically, or like in a planet's chart?
Great question. There's two answers. One is, in one way, if you look at it, it's a key. So what does the key represent? Nothing. It's the door that it unlocks. That's important.
Yeah.
Right. So what is that Chiron unlocking within you? So I would be any astrologer, I'd never delineate Chiron in a chart. Like I never delineate it. I'll look at it as the whole process, what it's doing and what it's opening up within you, or what. But on another level, and this is also part of my book, so you have to buy the book. But I thought about this long and hard, and working with it, right? Chiron, they talk about Chiron as the wounded healer.
Right.
But what is this wound that we're healing? What is this common wound that we share with humanity, with all of humanity, that we're healing? And then it goes back to the source. It's the pain of, it's the primal wound. It's the pain of separation. When that umbilical cord is cut, we sense separation. And that is, psychology will tell you, any trauma that's, the further back it is, the more deeply embedded it is, and childbirth is a traumatic process. So we feel that pain of separation, and that, then the rest of our lives, and that's also what locks in the natal chart in time. It's also that moment of birth. It's also when the person becomes an independent entity, right? Autonomous being. But the rest of our lives is spent seeking that connection with the mother, that primal connection that we had in the womb. And then if you go even before that, that's the connection that we have with the universe and the divine mother. So this wound that we're healing is this pain of separation from the divine. And in reality, that's an illusion. There is no separation. So wherever we have Chiron in our chart, it's like we're most sensitive to, it's empathy. We're more sensitive to pain, but we're also more sensitive to the divine. So the more, if you're feeling more painful, that's an indicator that you're disconnected from divinity or that divine source of consciousness. And so then illnesses happen, right? The more we're traumatized and we're in pain and we stay in that and we pinch off that source of supply, like that, the umbilical cord, the divine umbilical cord is never cut.
Right. Yeah.
Ah.
Those are our nadis in a sense. And our lack of awareness of that spiritual hygiene, spiritual connection, whatever, is what then tosses us into the darker manifestations of Chiron, which is like illness or wounding and addictions. And because what is addiction again? It's a connection to the source. That's what we're seeking, or connection. So I don't know if that answered your question, but what is Chiron? Yeah, Chiron is that primal sense of wounding as well as connection that we have with divinity, with the universe, with everything that is.
Yeah.
And yeah, I wouldn't delineate it in a chart, but then as you start to kind of get into each chart individually, you start to see, like when you do the transits, you see this running thread in a person's life. And then it kind of comes back to, okay, why were you even born? Right? It brings you, Chiron's also about finding that sense of purpose of why did I even come here?
Yeah.
So anyway, I hope I didn't go off too far on the tangent.
Oh no, for
That was
sure.
perfect. No.
Yeah, it does seem to me like the core existential angst that everyone suffers from, and I mean, I don't know what everyone else suffers from, but what it seems like to me is that pain of separation.
Yeah, that's a good observation.
Like being an independent, autonomous entity is
hard.
It's hard, and it's being separate from the divine, and it is an illusion, but it does seem to be underneath everything else, all of the other pains, all the other angst, everything else. That pain of separation is beneath them all.
Because whatever connection we're seeking, that's that connection that we're really seeking, right? We try to fill it with relationships and money and whatever else, but that's that inner.
Yeah.
That's it. So
it's pretty brilliant. I mean, seeing Chiron as that because that is it's one of the most important things lacks in a human life. But as far as I'm aware, there aren't any
and it's universal, right? It's universal. It's absolutely its existence. I mean, I will say this, maybe I shouldn't, but it's okay. Within 1 month of Chiron's discovery, I mean, go Google it yourself. November 1977, Wikipedia. Look at all the things that happened, and I'll list a few, but they're all going to come around full circle at 2027. I mean, humanity made a quantum leap in consciousness in November 77. We had the first Concorde jet. I mean, that's minor, but like think of laws of physics. The first digital recording, the first TCP/IP test, so the internet was formed within 1 month. The first peace talks in Palestine and Israel. Now let's talk about that, which is all coming around. So all this stuff is just going to come around at 2027. There's more. I mean, go look at it yourself. I think there was the first gay elected official in San Francisco. So it's like humanity was really, think of the earth is an organism. So Chiron, like that, was coming in as a guru for the whole planet. It's the whole organism, like, okay, it's time to heal. But healing means that we'll see the darkness, the purging first, but awareness as well. And then we live in this world where, it's so overwhelming. If we look at what's going on the news, it's easy to shut down and feel like we have no power. But this Chiron, it's like we're one cell in this larger organism. You can't affect the whole, but you can heal yourself. And, the more we feel connected with the divine, then it spreads out in waves. It does. And it's all we can do, So, but yeah, this Middle East, Palestine stuff, I'm not even surprised that it's all raging right now. And I can only hope that this is the getting worse before it gets better part.
Yeah.
You know, so, but
Yeah, that's heavy.
that's heavy. Sorry, did I say a lot?
Oh no, of course. But it is, I mean, when we're looking at new planets being discovered, like Uranus, for instance, was discovered when American Revolution was happening.
Right.
It's a lot to do with revolutions and that kind of thing.
Right.
And electricity and so on. So that's one of the best ways to see how a planet is functioning archetypically.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it seems like the next few years have a lot of things happening. Like yours is coming around too,
right?
So there's
it's going to be an intense time. I can already feel it. These eclipses were quite powerful. And even this Venus, I mean, everything, the whole, I don't know, the whole world seems to be quickening. Pluto's at the end of Capricorn now. And I feel like that's, yeah. And I think that's also another important factor for us to consider, because Pluto is squaring the nodes. Chiron is on the North Node right now, or close, right? It's like 19, 20. Where is it right now? Something like that. But I even think of Pluto and Capricorn as, Capricorn, yes, is big business and government, but it's also the peak of human consciousness, right? It's the peak of humanity. And so with Pluto squaring the nodes, we're just past the eclipses. Mars is in Scorpio. We're heading to this powerful Scorpio new moon that's coming up on the 13th, which is opposite Uranus. So that's going to spark something for sure. But then I think of Mars as this personal planet, right? And even the North Node in Aries being it's Aries, it's the individual. Where, okay, Aries can be war, sure, but Aries is also the individual. And, don't underestimate the power of one individual to spark that wave of needed change right now with that. And I don't know, have you seen the Sabian symbol for this new moon? It's mind-blowing.
No.
I actually just kind of saw it yesterday and it's mind-blowing. Wait, let me see if I have my...
I found that book.
It's basically about soldiers. Look at the Dane Rudd. I love Dane Rudd, yeah, that's why.
Yeah, I just found that book.
It's basically about soldiers, answering to their own conscience and not to authority. It's literally, that's the symbol. So I was so happy when I saw that. I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
But that's what it is, right? Like, it's very easy for these people in office to give orders for war. Who's going out and fighting?
Yeah.
And all of us, think this is on a bigger level. All the money that goes to war could be feeding people.
Yeah, right.
And if everybody was fed, no one would be fighting. I attended a UN conference a few years ago on sustainable development because of Amma. And they said that, it's 1/3 of, I think it's like 1/3 of the US's defense budget could feed the whole world.
Yeah.
Could wipe out world hunger.
Yeah.
So then you ask yourself, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
And
you ask yourself. Yeah, but that comes that thing about Chiron too, and healing yourself, because there really isn't that much that we have much control over.
Right.
But if we are all connected and all part of the same being, working on yourself helps other people too, and healing yourself helps heal other people as well. And if you're healed, you can help heal other people in the physical as well.
I mean, think that you are divine in human form, so am I. And that's that self-realization, right? We're not awake yet. We haven't realized that fullness of our power or divine power, right? The ego has to die before that work can really happen. So that's that work that we're doing with Chiron. But I guess that's what I was saying is, as we do that, then don't underestimate the power of the divine to work through you, right?
Yeah.
Then anything's possible. Look at all these people in history, the people who are destroying things as well as people who are doing good things. They're all human. So yeah, sorry.
was Chiron discovered in Aries?
No, Taurus.
Taurus. Okay.
Taurus. 3 degrees of Taurus. And
Exaltation of the moon.
sorry, 4 degrees of Taurus.
Okay.
Yeah, exaltation of the moon, 3 degrees, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. That's
It was exactly, and that's also part of my in the book, but that's the connection to the mother, right? That womb, the nurturing energy.
right. Wow.
So, and that primal connection or separation, or Chiron's deep.
Yeah. We talked with
Chiron's
Michael Bryan in earlier this summer, and he was also finding that Chiron, like he initially wanted to like kind of not work with Chiron, but then it just kept on showing up in his clients' charts, and it was just saying, "Hey, this is something you gotta look at."
Yeah.
I mean, Chiron was mythologically the teacher of astrology, and I would say he's taught me everything I know about astrology. Almost like I would consider Chiron one of my top mentors for sure.
Wow.
Because literally, like, it unlocks the chart. It teaches you, like, the planets start to talk to you, or maybe that's me, but
I think ideally they should start to talk to you.
Yeah.
But if they are talking to you, you're probably doing it right.
Well, I hope so. I do also have Chiron conjunct Mercury, so that also kind of
has a tendency to talk in general.
Yeah, so it does.
Yeah,
But
I actually do too.
You do?
Yeah, well, it's pretty close.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, so then you should definitely try working with it. I mean, I recommend it to anyone. Like I would, because in those 15 minutes, you get so much valuable information of where a client is at. And it literally, for an astrologer, it unlocks the chart for you. You know exactly what those planets are doing. You know exactly what's going on psychologically with your client. The most common feedback that I get repeatedly is better than therapy. This was better than therapy.
Oh,
nice. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a psychologist.
Right.
I clearly am good at what I do, but it's Chiron.
Yeah. So the other thing you were talking about in terms of Chiron is also like that. You mentioned the word spiritual hygiene, and I think that is just so important in general. And I think in the U.S. it's not prioritized. Well, in the U.S. we don't even like believe in
right
that about it at all. But
I just think it's so important because in India you just grow up, and maybe of course even in India there's like the modern Indians who think it's all whatever, but they'll still do it.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
It's just so ingrained in us, and that's what I love about Sanatan Dharma, which people call Hinduism. Hinduism is incorrect. Sanatan Dharma is it's not even a religion. I said that in the last lecture, but Sanatan means Tan is body, so it's for everybody. So the rishis, this is divine knowledge. It's just a way for us to have guidelines when we're on earth. They wanted all beings to be happy and find, so if there's no dogma, if you don't want to do it, don't do it, but they're just showing you how you can help yourself. But so just starting your day with even a simple lighting a lamp or a candle at your altar and just sitting there for 5 minutes, and even if you don't want to pray to a god, you just connect with yourself. It makes a world of a difference.
Yeah, I think it's very important, and we've lost a lot in the U.S. of the things. I think with the Protestant Reformation and then the subsequent atheist materialism, but even the Catholics, they had a lot more. Like they had the Rosary,
right?
Which is like it's a mala.
Well, here's another.
They had all the saints, they had all these prayers that you do. But starting your day off with a prayer, even or lighting a candle or a mantra, is just really helps the whole day.
It really does. Like even now, like if I skip one day, sometimes I'm like lazy, and I can feel the difference in my day,
Yeah.
And it's funny you said Catholic. Like I grew up in India, but I grew up in a very Catholic neighborhood. So I thought I was like I went to convent school. I grew up across a church. I thought I was Catholic till I was like 7. My parents didn't bother to correct me until one day I found out that I was not. I didn't have mass, and father said I couldn't have the host and whatever. And I was totally traumatized at the time, but that's how I found out I wasn't Catholic. But it was funny. but like
Uh.
I feel like I'm coming full circle in just on
Yeah.
my own path in many ways as well. So it's interesting. And we were going to talk about puja and spiritual hygiene, which we
Yeah.
didn't much.
Well, so what I find so like as I've been studying Vedic astrology, what I've been amazed by is how integrated it is with all the other sciences, yoga,
Exactly.
Ayurveda, puja. It's all connected. It's all intricately connected. And
Exactly.
in Europe in 1500, it was a lot more that way, but
Right.
it since 1700, it's been totally destroyed.
Right.
But
Modern science. Right.
I've also been loving with Vedic astrology is the remedies and how important those are, and
Right.
how you can just help the archetypical energies
Yeah.
move through you in more helpful ways to yourself and to everybody else. But also, as I've been studying, I'm learning all these new things about like Sanskrit pronunciation,
Right.
deity forms. Who are the
I'm,
Vishnu forms,
oh my
avatars?
God, I'm impressed. I'm totally impressed because it's so much. Like even I
It's
don't
so
know.
much.
I don't know it all. Like by any means. You probably know more than I do in some ways. I mean, like the studied part for sure. It's like, see, the rishis back then, what they did is they just, like you said, it's all connected, right? So even the people who don't believe, it's just it's just part of the fabric of society. So
Right.
that's what they did. They made it easy for us to just get the benefit. Even if
Yeah.
you don't understand what you're doing, it doesn't matter. You do this, you get the benefit. That's
Mhm.
all. So temples, there's like whole science of temples. They're built, I know very little, but they all built based on Vastu.
Yeah.
So they're based on like the chakras of the body. So every time they can, basically you're constructing, that space, that when you enter that space, you're cleared of your negativity or whatever.
Right.
And the way the sound travels, it's all stored in the main pillar, which is outside the temple. And then that keeps broadcasting those vibrations all over. Things like that. Like we don't even know. We just go into the temple and we touch this pillar because everybody touches the pillar. We don't even know why we do it, but we all do it. But that's part of it. Like we get the benefit immediately.
Yeah.
So even being little, like there would be pujas and stuff at home, and I'd ask my mother, I'd be like, "What's going on?" And she'd be like, "Shh, shh." Like you're not even supposed to ask questions. You're just like, "Shh." Like, okay, fine. You just sit there, you know. But I think that's the beauty of it, is like you can call it blind faith, but it's not that. It's practice.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's also like, Sanjay Roth, by the time he was 8, he had memorized Prashra or Shastra. He didn't necessarily know what it meant, but he
Right,
had memorized it. So then he could spend the rest of his life honing that,
right.
and understanding what that meant, what all of it meant, and using it as a foundation. So you don't have to understand it to be able to get benefit from it. But like, and even like the temples, like we just had a podcast, not it was in the winter with John Michael Greer, talk about temple technology and how that spread
Right,
across the world, and how it's like really does affect the growth of crops.
right. And
So
then
having the
when we do the whole big yajnas, like the Homa yajnas,
yeah,
that with the mantras,
yeah,
the vibrations are supposed to be so powerful for like world peace. So Amma will do a lot of yajnas with like Rudra mantras. We'll do, Ati Rudram. But so you're making offerings to the fire and you think it's nothing, but the smoke that's coming out of it is purifying our atmosphere.
right. It's
And
got volatile oils in it, and
yeah,
and everything. Yeah,
all kinds of things. So it's fascinating. Like this Vedic science is so beyond anything modern science can even touch right now. But that's okay. It's not about a competition. It's just about if it's benefiting you, right?
right.
And how can most people get benefit? So
Well, yeah. I think also it's like it's different. It's like modern science has focused just on one thing, aspects of
the
the material
physical,
universe. Yes.
Yeah.
And they've had to like it could only develop in a Protestant, like atheistic
exactly.
framework, because they're focused just on the material.
I mean, even Amma says, she's like, you say only physical matters, but okay, where's your mind? Can you tell me where your mind is?
Right.
You can't point out your mind, but you have one, right? Or do you
Yeah.
not? You know?
Well, who
Yeah.
has
So
it?
who doesn't? So then clearly, or love. She's like, can you tell me this is love, but you
Right.
feel it, right? So you feel your soul. There are things that we don't see and we can't touch, but that doesn't mean that they're not there. And it's arrogant to think that. It's foolish to think that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And
yeah. And then who is the one observing the mind or the body?
right? And
You
who
know?
is observing the mind then?
Right.
Yeah.
Who's
And
the
that's
observer?
you, like how do you can't even point to what you are.
Right? So it's wild. Like for me, like just even astrology, and that's why I love astrology so much. It's like that the whole world, the whole universe is in that little circle, and if we can really dive into that understanding, I mean, and that can be true for astrology or any path you choose, right? When you focus and when you immerse yourself and lose yourself in it, then everything opens up.
Yeah. But
Mhm.
astrology is such a wonderful tool just for in terms of understanding yourself and understanding the world. But you can never stop studying it. You can, it can
Endless.
unlock so many other things.
It's totally endless. It's completely endless. And I love it. I think that's why, there's always something new, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's always something new. So maybe last thought that's coming to me right now, I was thinking was Pluto, and maybe I should say this in Capricorn, and because people will be listening, right? Capricorn is that peak of consciousness. Pluto is power.
Mm.
And humanity is changing. We can see the world is changing. We know it's going to happen. Like we know what happens when Pluto changes signs. But then that Pluto in Aquarius is the power of the people.
Hmm.
So and the node is still in Aries, right? North node is still in Aries. So if with this Mars in Scorpio, and if we can evolve and become more self-aware, like I'm an optimist. At the same time, look, this is Kali Yuga.
Yeah.
There's always going to be wars. There's always going to be stuff happening in the world, but hey, I'm happy to be wrong, but I doubt there'll be an utopia. Like suddenly
Right.
people talk about the Aquarian age, which I don't know much of anything about, but there's not suddenly going to be like, oh, no one's
Well,
going
even
to,
if you look at it, like traditionally, Aquarius is ruled by Saturn,
right?
and now, I mean, in modern astrology is ruled by Uranus too. So neither of those planets are benefics.
No, and this is Kali Yuga. It's not getting better.
Right. Yeah.
It's not getting better, but we can still have a better experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they say in Kali Yuga, it's the easiest time to attain
Get
moksha.
moksha. Exactly. Even Amma says that. She's like think it's darkness, right? So even one small candle in the night
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
seen. So like God sees your littlest efforts.
Oh.
She's like, you think of when a baby starts to walk, we're so excited. She's like, when you guys take that first step to God, that's how excited God is. Look, my baby's coming to me. You take that one step and God takes 1,000. So she's like, I take 1,000. That's what the Divine Mother is. So for me, I mean, I've always been connected to God, but ever since I met Amma, like just having her in the flesh is something else. But still, this universe is kind, it's benevolent, and we're not alone.
Yeah. And we're not separate from
We're not separate from it.
divinity, from the source. Yeah.
No. Everything is one. It's trippy. Reality is stranger than fiction.
Yeah.
It really is. It's about learning to live with nature sustainably. Like that's the only way we're going to be able to continue. I mean, the earth will be fine.
Right.
Humans may not, but
yeah, and I think humans in general will be fine. I think industrial civilization might not be fine, but
right. I mean, hopefully
for the best.
Right. I mean, it's always about the money.
Yeah.
I think like they should just find ways to incentivize these people to get money some other way, and they'll stop destroying the earth.
That's a good idea.
Right.
That's all it is. It's like finding other ways for them to make money, and then they'll be happy.
That's a good point.
Well, the other thing is that like it's not just about the money. Like money is just this medium of exchange. I think for most people who like for $1 billion won't satisfy them.
Right.
They have this deep wound in them that they're trying to heal with.
It's that
with money.
disconnection.
Is that
And
disconnection?
it's that Chiron. Yeah.
Is that Chiron?
Mhm.
You know, like no amount of material, whatever, is going to fill that hole
Right.
that we feel.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That
So-
can only be, you know, when we're connected to everything, then we feel whole.
Yeah.
That's that holisticness of Chiron.
Right, and you also can't make anybody change, and you can't make.
But yeah, I guess in closing, like for people who do want to connect to the divine and who do want to have like daily practices for, grounding down in these times, like what do you recommend for daily
Sure.
practice?
Well, I would say, really keep it simple. If you want to start, like I have my prayers and stuff that I do, but if you have a little altar, or even if you don't have an altar, find a space that you can sit down, just light a little lamp or a candle, and maybe just close your eyes and try to focus on your third eye and just observe your thoughts, because meditation is not easy, right? Okay, you can say a little prayer if you want, but meditation takes time. People can get frustrated with it. Even it's not easy for me. Now after so long, I'm getting a little better at being able to sit for longer periods of time. But otherwise, just sit and focus at the center of your, between your eyes, your third eye, and observe the thoughts. Don't try to stop them. Don't try to fight them. Just observe them, like let them pass like clouds
Mhm.
in the sky. Don't jump, or like a train. Don't jump on the train. Just like let it leave the station. You stay there, kind of a thing. And like Amma says, and it's true, it takes at least 20 minutes for our brainwaves to even quieten down enough to get into a quieter meditative state. So, but if you can't do longer times, they say early morning Brahma Muhurta is the best time for meditation. Of course, anytime you do it is fine, but it would be most helpful, easiest to meditate in the morning between 3 and 6, 7. Isaac is laughing because
He's like, that's the best time to sleep.
I know. They say it is. No, but honestly, to answer your question, I think just wake up and what I do is after I shower, shower is important. Then you're fresh for the day, take a shower, be clean, light a little candle or lamp and just sit for 5 minutes, 10 minutes and just be with yourself. Forget about the world.
Yeah.
Then start your day.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really like that, the train metaphor or the bus metaphor.
Mhm.
And I think one of the other things is important to note is like oftentimes it's recognizing that you're on the train or on the bus and getting off.
Exactly. Sometimes, and that happens too, right? Like sometimes
Yeah,
you're on it
most
and
of
like,
it.
oh, okay, oops, and then you jump off again. So
Yeah.
don't get frustrated with that process. It's gonna happen. That's the nature of the mind. But
Yeah.
ultimately, we're just trying to finally find enough separation where you realize that you are not your thoughts.
Mhm.
Like if you can even get to that point, it's a win, right? When we start to see, okay, wait, the thoughts are there and I am here.
Yeah.
Right. And and a lot
Totally.
of people don't even really, it's like when you get to that point where you can see your thoughts, it's like there's
Just a little space created, right? And so then that space allows you to react differently, right? To life.
Right.
Okay.
To let them
Yeah.
Because
go.
like if something happens, then immediately I have a thought and immediately react. Instead, something happens, I have a thought, then I have space to like, oh, okay, do I want to respond this way or not? And then I can respond differently.
And it can be easy to like not even realize that you're having thoughts unless you've done some meditation.
Exactly.
Because you're thinking and there's no space, you're laminated to them. So you don't even
Right.
realize until afterwards.
Believe me. And listen, I'm no saint. Anything I'm saying to you is because of trial and error and trial and error and falling down a million times on my face. But that's the spiritual path,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And then
It's
getting
just
back up. Yeah. Falling
getting
off,
back up.
getting back up and keeping going.
keeping going. I mean, as long as, and I guess maybe one last thing I will say. Oh, if anybody wants a reading, of course they can reach me. You'll put that down, right?
Yeah.
Priya at Cosmic Diaries. But about Chiron, this is something that came to me earlier. Slipped my head again. It literally just came into my head and went off again. Purpose, yes. So one last thing, I mean, maybe spiritual practice, Chiron. It's like, yeah, okay, pain of separation. We're here, we're separate from the divine. Why am I even here? If there was a sense of purpose, then we don't feel that way, right?
Yeah.
So it's like when we're feeling like, okay, I'm needed, there's a purpose for my life and for my being here, then we don't feel so disconnected. So recognize that is also another important thing to remember, that you are here for a purpose. Even if that purpose is just self-realization, even if that's all it is, but
Yeah.
you're here for a purpose. You know, it's not for nothing. And Chiron can really help us find that sense of purpose.
Yeah,
So,
that's so important. If you
and
don't have a
it's
purpose.
so important, because
Yeah, if you don't
otherwise
know.
people feel like they're not needed, they're not, you know, nobody, what is my purpose? So, and we're like seeds that are planted on this planet at the time of our birth, and then life happens and we grow, and sometimes in spite of life we flourish, and sometimes the elements, you know, wither, or, you know, don't make it easy for someone. Inhospitable conditions, people can't grow well, but the ultimate goal is to bear that fruit. So at 50, when that Chiron return happens, it's like the tree is bearing fruit, and it's either fruit that can help society, or it's poison fruit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, if you haven't fully healed yourself. So that's the purpose. Like at 50, when that Chiron comes around full circle, it's like you've hopefully understood your own consciousness, and now it's time to give back to the world. So yeah, but I think, yes, I've meandered and gone around, but spiritual practice, I think, is the only thing that I would say has helped me and can help anyone, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, astrology will take us so far, but after that we have to get out of our head and reconnect with our soul, spirit, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Priya. This has been fantastic. And
I
thank
hope
you for being on
so.
the show.
I hope so.